or through the student union in Iowa City, and there was a couple of Iranian guys that had a table set up with information for new students, and I considered myself pretty well informed about geography of the world, and I knew where Iran was, and so I stopped to talk to them, and they told me about this terrible dictator that they had and how he had been put into power by the CIA some years earlier. And earlier that year, or actually the year before, I was quite the patriotic kid in high school. I had been nominated for a position at the U.S. Air Force Academy by then Senator Culver. I didn't get the position, but when they told me about the Shah and his secret police and the human rights abuses, I told them, I said, well, I know the senator from the state of Iowa. I didn't know, Senator Clark, who actually was a human rights advocate by that time, but I did know Culver. So I said, well, let me write a letter to my senator. So I wrote a letter to Culver, and I sent some of the literature that they had given me. And so I went back home, and then a month later, or 5 weeks later, I came back to start the school year in late August. And I had received a letter from Senator Culver. And Senator Culver wrote back and said, Joe, of course I remember you, and thank you for writing, and thank you for your concern about human rights. And he said, and it's true that Iran has had some problems, but the Shah of Iran, he said, is a good man. He's addressed those problems together with President Carter, and essentially it's been fixed. So when I came back to school, there were those same Iranian guys setting up their table with information for new students. And I stopped and I was excited, and I told them I had written to the senator and he had assured me it was being taken care of. And they said, oh yeah? Well, here's the latest newsletter. We gave you one in June. Here's another one with the latest crimes that he's committed. And this guy who's a part of our campus group, his cousin just disappeared into the secret police's hands, and we believe he's dead. And I said, well, how could that be? I mean, the senator assured me that this had been fixed. And they said, Joe, the senator is lying to you. And that's how the U.S. government operates. They don't tell the American people what's really going on. Because if the American people knew, you wouldn't stand for it. That's what happened during the Vietnam War, they told me. And I hadn't been a student of the anti-war protests, but of course I was old enough. I remember my older sisters coming back from college. I remember, Kathy bringing home the Woodstock album. I remember the Vietnam War through TV and family. I remember going to the funeral of a classmate of one of the older girls in Sigourney, the older brother of a boy that I was a classmate with, who died in Vietnam in 1967. So I remembered the Vietnam War, but I wasn't all torn up about it. But at that moment, it was like a popping sound in the back of my head. And I said, well, what else can I do about it? And the Iranian guys said, well, you should get involved in the anti-war movement and, help us, and help your people, put a stop to what your country does around the world. In essence, it really made me mad that I had been lied to. I was such a true believer of, my country's role in the world. And to realize that I'd had the wool pulled over my eyes, it really made me mad. So I was determined to right the wrong.